Welcome, gentlemen, to the channel Man Evolved, where we discuss important topics for male development. In today's video, we will understand the importance of studying as a path to improve our own minds. Before we begin, I want you to ask yourself the following question: how do you know if you are on the right path in life? I suggest you pause the video now and reflect on this question. I know the answer is not simple, and some men have never thought about it in their lives. How do we know if the path we are taking in life is the correct one? How do we know if we see the world with the necessary clarity? First, I want to say that an exact answer to this question is impossible. We can respond with something close, but never exactly what needs to be done. However, one thing is certain: it is not possible to make good decisions in life and lead it positively without knowledge, and this knowledge is only possible through study. A man needs to dedicate his study to improve his mind, his ability to interpret situations in life, and make good decisions. It is no use looking at external problems without first developing himself. There are things in the world that bother you, ideas that do not agree with your worldview. How do you know this? Have you tried to understand the reason for these ideas or situations? We must develop wisdom so that we do not become another victim, another sheep in the herd. Being wise means knowing what to do with knowledge, how to use it wisely, moderately, and usefully. A man is also the result of his choices, and they are based on the level of knowledge about a particular subject. To be wise also means to face the error and the right decisions we make. Therefore, gentlemen, it is extremely important to improve ourselves through study and, combined with practice, develop wisdom. After all, we cannot just conform to theory. We need to find validation in reality. Knowledge also needs to be shown relevant in our daily lives. The author of the book, The Intellectual Life, says the following: "It is not through what is individual in us that we light up the truth, but by virtue of a universal participation." I strongly believe that modern men must cooperate with each other through their knowledge and actions. It is clear, given what has been said so far, that studying is essential for making good decisions that impact our lives and contributing to the whole. Studying also has a social purpose. It is not enough to isolate oneself with books. We must cooperate and impact the lives of other people with similar interests. Now the question remains: how to study? How to acquire knowledge? First, we need to remove a very common barrier, understanding that studying is not only for those who want to be intellectuals. It is necessary for any man in any condition. We are not talking about authors in certain areas, unless you want to follow that path. We are talking about any man with diverse interests who must absorb relevant knowledge for his life. Therefore, do not think, "I am not or do not want to be an intellectual." We all need to improve our minds through study. Second, assuming that studying is extremely necessary, find motivation in it. Find the why of that knowledge according to Sertilanges. There are two sins when studying: omission and curiosity. The first is obvious. When we simply do not study, an unthinkable condition for any man. Omission is the absence of motivation. The second happens when studying a particular subject has no relation to our main activities. Again, there is no why. What is your professional field? How much time do you dedicate to studying something relevant to your profession? Do you not like your job and want to change? Certainly, you will need to study to become proficient in this new field. Therefore, find a connection between your life and the content to be studied. Of course, this does not invalidate knowledge outside the professional field. For example, I became interested in reading when I was about 17 to 18 years old. At the time, I was fascinated with the game Call of Duty, which drew my attention to World War II. I was so fascinated with the subject that I read any type of material about the war at any time. See, there is a connection between a taste, an interest, and knowledge. Therefore, do not waste time with irrelevant things. Seek knowledge that fits your tastes, but do not forget about knowledge aimed at duty, such as the professional aspect I mentioned before. Third, develop discipline of the body. In the book, Settlinges, it is explained that for the mind to function properly, the body must be in good condition. I have talked several times about the importance of physical activity, and based on what the author said, this practice proves to be correct and important for the proper functioning of the brain and consequently, intelligence. These are the first steps. Once they are overcome, we now need to organize everyone's life to begin. To start, the idea is to reduce social life. I imagine this is a controversial point. However, notice that I said to reduce and not eliminate. Distractions without purpose dissipate the energy of those who propose to study. Without retreat, there is no inspiration. As Serlanges said in his book, the one who needs to develop only needs a moment of solitude, of seclusion. This moment serves so that he dedicates himself only to discovering, investigating. This is not possible in the midst of unnecessary agitation. It is necessary to dedicate oneself to study, but it also does not mean giving up on other situations. We need to reconcile voluntary solitude, aiming at improving the mind, with daily actions for other purposes, for other duties. This is how we achieve balance. Living only in studies and reflection distorts the view of reality. The view becomes too abstract and not very useful in everyday life. Do something, but do not surrender to activities without purpose, except for specific leisure moments, which should also serve to strengthen the spirit. I think it is also important to comment that the man who is a family man will have more difficulty developing his mind through study because of the time needed for his wife and children. However, considering that his work must be the foundation of his life and those close to him, he needs to dedicate himself to study at possible moments to lead his family well and evolve in his work. Clarify your doubts, says St. Thomas Aquinas. A man needs to seek the truth, understand what surrounds him, and how to deal with certain situations. For this, a permanent effort is necessary. We must not start and not continue studying. It is painful, but its fruit is beneficial. I perceive that laziness is usually what hinders it. A man cannot be lazy. He needs to dedicate his continuous and vigorous effort to conquer what he deems necessary. I see that this is also a heroic attitude in today's times. Ideas, truths are scattered in everyday life, on the streets, in common situations. But to identify and judge them, knowledge is necessary. To learn from them, study is necessary. I remember realizing this idea when dealing with politics. Certain political ideas are spread, and some did not agree with what I believed. Instead of giving in, I tried to understand them. I needed to know the truth, which path to follow. This is the kind of reasoning you should have. Do not accept an idea imposed by other people without any questioning. Study to not be another deluded person. To develop intellectuality, you must confront knowledge with the reality lived in everyday life. Many lessons can be extracted in common situations. Therefore, be attentive. Another important detail when starting studies is that it is normal to lose focus amid so much content. In this case, dedicate yourself deeply to one topic before moving on to others. Prefer depth to volume. Concentrate on one point. Do not keep searching for different paths all the time. Who wants too much ends up with nothing. Choose a path and stick to it firmly. The opposite is allowed in case you do not know what to do, which path to follow. The secret is to experiment. Having contact with various fields of knowledge can help. Something will certainly catch your attention, and when you discover it, dedicate yourself joyfully to the deep study of that subject. It is natural for several interests to arise at first. During your studies, when in contact with various sources, it is important to give importance to the content and not to who transmits it. St. Thomas Aquinas says this: "Do not consider from whom you hear things, but everything that is said well, trust it to your memory." The source does not matter. What matters is the knowledge, the truth that this source wants to convey. This is important to avoid prejudices when seeking knowledge. It is also not enough to dedicate oneself to studying without understanding its implications in other areas. The points always connect to others in other contexts. Explore these possibilities to understand as much as possible. The one who says he understands a certain subject actually does not understand. Rarely do we have a full understanding of a particular topic. After studying, it is necessary to review it and understand how it fits into other contexts. By doing this, understanding will certainly change. Do not take a truth as absolute. Gentlemen, we have understood important concepts to organize a life of study, and now I propose that you apply the following method from today on if you want to develop your own mind. Before studying, have the following clear: what I still do not know, what I need to know more. After this understanding, select books aligned with your goal. If you are not used to reading, start with what interests you. It is a more enjoyable way to start reading. When you have the books, remember these concepts. First, read little. As St. Thomas Aquinas said, "By the brooks and not directly is that we reach the sea." Do not try to take a bigger step than you are ready for. Start slowly, reading for 30 minutes a day, then increase to 1 hour, and keep trying to find your limit. Second, be open to content, but do not stop being critical. This means not being passive about the content they present and always maintaining this questioning look. Third, reflect on the content studied. This is the moment when we solidify what we have read. Therefore, take a moment to understand if it makes sense in your life. Fourth, train your memory. One way to train is to summarize what was read without reading it again. Fifth, make notes during the reading. Ideas, questions will arise, and the best practice is to write them down. This also favors creativity. And sixth, eat well and exercise. I believe I do not need to explain why. Studying to improve oneself is not easy, takes time, and is usually unpleasant. But that does not matter to men committed to their development. Being a man also means doing what needs to be done. Moral and intellectual development go hand in hand. Therefore, do not make excuses and study. I hope this content helps you. If it did, please consider subscribing, leaving a like, and commenting if you want to share what you think. A strong hug.